They always save the best seat for everyone but me. At the next dinner, I took the stage with something they hadn't anticipated, and should have seen their faces. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that 3 months ago I had everything. A wife who loved me, 2 kids who thought I hung the moon, a house with a white picket fence that we'd painted together last spring. Sarah had this way of humming while she made coffee in the mornings. This little off-key tune that used to drive me crazy in the best way. Now I sit in a studio apartment that smells like takeout and regret, and I haven't heard her hum in 97 days. It started at Marcus's wedding. That's what I tell anyway, like I can pinpoint the exact moment I decided to throw away 12 years for a few hours of feeling wanted by someone else. But that's a lie. It started way before that in the 1,000 little moments where I felt invisible in my own. The know that feeling when walk into a room and everyone's already seated. Sarah's book club, her sister's dinner parties, even our own family gatherings. There was always this perfect arrangement of chairs, this natural flow of conversation, and somehow I was always the afterthought, the extra chair pulled to the corner. The one who got the wobbly seat by the kitchen door. "Oh honey, don't mind sitting there do?" Sarah would ask, but she'd already turned back to her conversation with her college roommate or her mom, or whoever was more interesting than me that day. I minded. God, I minded so much it felt like swallowing glass. But I never said anything because what kind of man complains about where he sits? What kind of husband makes a scene about party planning? So I smiled. I sat in the corner. I made jokes that landed just okay and tried not to notice how Sarah's eyes lit when literally anyone else walked into the room. The wedding was supposed to be different. Sarah looked incredible in this blue dress that matched her eyes, and for 5 minutes in the car she actually talked to me. Really talked. About the flowers, about how Marcus looked nervous, about whether we should renew our vows for our 15th anniversary next year. Next year, like we were still building some together instead of me secretly tearing it down brick by brick. The reception hall was gorgeous. Round tables with gold chairs, fairy lights everywhere. The kind of setup Sarah screenshots for her Pinterest boards. We found our assigned table and there it was again. That perfect circle of Sarah's friends from college, their husbands who all seemed to have better jobs and funnier stories than me. And there, pulled at an awkward angle because the table was really meant for 8, not 9, was my chair. "Sorry," Sarah said, already settling into her between Jessica and Amanda. Know how these things are. I knew exactly how these things were. That's when I saw her, Melissa, the wedding photographer's assistant. Dark hair, bright smile, and when she asked if I wanted a drink, she actually waited for my answer. She didn't check her phone or wave at someone over my shoulder or assume I'd just figure it out. "Look like could use something stronger than champagne," she said, and when I laughed, she laughed too. Like I'd said something genuinely funny instead of just politely amusing. We talked by the bar for maybe 10 minutes. About photography, about how she was saving for her own camera equipment, about how wedding receptions all blur together after a while. Nothing deep, nothing meaningful. Just conversation where I felt like a person instead of an accessory. When Sarah came looking for me, her cheeks were flushed from laughter. We're doing the group photo. Jessica's husband has this hilarious story about their cruise. She grabbed my arm, already pulling me back toward the table that didn't quite have room for me. I looked back at Melissa, who was adjusting her camera strap and pretending not to watch. She gave me this little smile that said, "I see," in a way Sarah hadn't in years. That should have been it. That should have been the end of the story. Harmless flirtation, moment of feeling appreciated, back to real. But when Melissa texted me 3 days later, she'd gotten my number from the guest list. She said wanted to send me some candid shots from the wedding. I didn't delete it. I texted back. "Thanks for the photos, really captured the happiness. Wife looked beautiful." Both did. That should have made me stop. Should have reminded me what I had to lose. Instead it made me feel guilty and guilt made me angry and anger made me. She was in her element, surrounded by all her friends. What about, did have fun? Such a simple question. Such a dangerous question. I always have fun watching immediate fun. The 3. Disappeared. Appeared again. That sounds lonely. 2 words that cracked something open in my chest that I'd been keeping sealed shut for years. Someone saw it. Someone said it out loud. That text thread lasted 6 weeks. Just talking at first. About work stress and family dynamics and all the little disappointments that pile in a long marriage. Nothing inappropriate, I told. Just friendship with someone who understood what it felt like to feel overlooked. But understanding turned into anticipation. Anticipation turned into planning my day around her messages. And planning turned into lying to Sarah about why I was smiling at my phone. Work stuff, I'd say, or just something Marcus sent. Each came easier than the last, and each one carved out a little more space between me and my wife. The first time Melissa suggested meeting for coffee, I said no. The second time I said maybe. The third time I drove to the cafe 20 minutes early and sat in my car practicing what I'd say if anyone saw us. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became long conversations in her car in empty parking lots. And conversations became hands held across console centers. Became stolen kisses that tasted like betrayal and excitement in equal measure. I told it wasn't real infidelity. We hadn't crossed that final line. I was just getting something I needed. Something Sarah couldn't or wouldn't give me. I deserved to feel wanted. I deserved to feel special. All the things cheaters tell themselves when they're building their house of lies. The night it happened, Sarah was at book club. The kids were at sleepovers. I had the house too and a dozen excuses lined for why this was okay, why this was different, why this was just one night of feeling like I mattered. Melissa came over with takeout and we sat on my couch, the same couch where Sarah and I used to watch movies before we started watching them on separate devices in the same room. We talked about everything and nothing, and when she leaned against it I didn't pull away. When she me I her back. When she whispered that she'd been thinking about this for weeks, I whispered that I had too. When she took my hand and led me upstairs to the bedroom I shared with my wife, I followed. I won't give details. I won't make this story any worse than it already is. But I will tell that afterward, lying in my marriage bed with someone else's perfume on my pillow, I felt like I was drowning. Melissa fell asleep curled against my chest, and all I could think about was how Sarah used to do the same thing when we were first married. How she'd trace patterns on my skin and tell me about her dreams for our future. Our future that I just burned to the ground for a few hours of feeling chosen. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, cataloging everything in that room that belonged to the I was about to lose. Sarah's reading glasses on the nightstand. The photo from our honeymoon on the dresser. The laundry basket full of our kids' clothes waiting to be folded. Melissa left before the kids came home, but her presence lingered like smoke in the walls. I changed the sheets, sprayed air freshener, took a shower that lasted 40 minutes. Nothing worked. The guilt clung to my skin like a second shadow. When Sarah came home from book club that night, humming her little off-key song, I wanted to fall at her feet and confess everything. I wanted to beg forgiveness and promise it would never happen again. Instead, I asked how her evening went and nodded along while she told me about the book they'd discussed. I heard goodnight like always and lay awake counting the ways I'd already lost her. That was 2 months ago. Tomorrow Sarah's divorce lawyer will serve me papers at work, in front of my colleagues, because she wants everyone to know exactly what kind of man I am. She found out 3 weeks after it happened. Not because I confessed. Because Melissa decided she wanted more than stolen afternoons and started texting Sarah directly. Husband and I have been spending a lot of time together. I think should know. Just like that. Nuclear delivered via text message while Sarah was making dinner for our family. I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in her hands and devastation written across her face. True, she asked. I could have lied. Could have claimed Melissa was crazy, someone making things for attention. Sarah might have even believed me, or wanted to believe me enough to pretend. Instead, I looked at this woman who'd loved me for 12 years, who'd given me 2 beautiful children, who'd hummed off-key songs while making my coffee every morning, and I told her the truth. Yes, she didn't scream. She didn't throw things, she just nodded once slowly like she was confirming something she'd suspected all along. Get out, she said quietly. Pack a bag and get out. Don't be here when I tell the kids. That was 97 days ago, and it was the last conversation we've had that wasn't through lawyers. I've tried calling, I've tried texting, I've tried showing at the house I'm not allowed to enter anymore. Sarah won't even look at me when I pick the kids for my court-mandated visitation every other weekend. The kids. Emma, my 8-year-old, keeps asking when daddy's coming home. She doesn't understand why mommy cries when she thinks no one is looking. She doesn't understand why their perfect little world exploded without warning. Jake, who's 12, understands too much. He barely speaks to me anymore. When I took them to dinner last weekend, he stared at his phone the entire time and answered my questions with shrugs and one-word responses. Why did do it, Dad? He finally asked as I was driving them back to what used to be my home. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't sound like an excuse. So I said nothing, and the silence stretched between us like a chasm I'll never be able to cross. Sarah's friends won't speak to me. Her family treats me like I'm radioactive. My own parents who adored Sarah have made it clear they're as disappointed in me as everyone else. We're raised better than this, my mother said when I tried to explain. That poor woman. Those poor children. Even Marcus, whose wedding started this whole nightmare, told me he couldn't be friends with someone who would betray his wife like that. One by one, the people I thought would always be in my have closed their doors. I sit in my studio apartment with its single chair and its view of a brick wall, and I finally have what I thought I wanted. A seat just for me, all by. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I need someone to know that I understand what I've lost. Maybe because I need to say out loud that there's no excuse, no justification, no, but don't understand. That makes this okay. I had everything. I had a woman who loved me despite my flaws, who made me coffee and hummed while she did it, who dreamed about our future together. I had children who thought I was a hero, who ran to the door when I came home from work, who wanted me to read them bedtime stories every single night. I had it that most people would for, and I had all away because I didn't like where they put my chair at dinner parties. The loneliness is crushing. Not just being alone but knowing I deserve to be alone. Knowing that every person who's walked away from me made the right choice. Knowing that I'm the villain in my own story and everyone else is too. But the worst part isn't the loneliness. The worst part is knowing that somewhere across town, Sarah is tucking our kids into bed by herself, probably still humming that little off-key song. I thought yesterday was rock bottom. I was wrong. The divorce papers came at 20:47 p.m. right in the middle of our weekly team meeting. Jenny from HR walked in with this manila envelope and that look on her face. Know the one, professional sympathy mixed with barely concealed judgment. Michael Thompson, she'd ask, even though she's known me for 6 years. Every head in that conference room turned. My boss, Steve, stopped mid-sentence about quarterly projections. Priya from accounting actually gasped. And I just sat there, knowing exactly what was in that envelope but somehow still hoping it was something else. Anything else? Sign here please. My hands shook signing my own name. 12 years of marriage reduced to legal documents served in front of my coworkers like some public. I could feel their stares burning into my back as I walked out of that room. The hallway whispers started before I even made it to my office. By 5 p.m. everyone knew. In a building of 200 people, news travels fast when someone's implodes spectacularly. I caught fragments of conversations that stopped abruptly when they saw me coming. I always thought Sarah was too good for him. Those poor kids. I heard he was cheating with some photographer. Some photographer. Like Melissa was just a random person instead of the nuclear I invited into my marriage. I drove home to my pathetic studio apartment and read every page of those papers twice. Sarah wants full custody with supervised visitation. She wants the house, which is fair because I'm the one who made it unlivable for her. She wants alimony, child support, and half of everything we built together. But what destroyed me wasn't the money or the custody schedule, or even seeing our marriage dissected into legal terms. It was the restraining order request. Petitioner requests protection from an unwanted contact from respondent, including but not limited to repeated phone calls, text messages, and appearing at the marital residence without permission. She thinks I'm harassing her. Maybe I am. Maybe showing at the house I pay for, trying to talk to the woman I love, sending texts apologizing for the worst mistake of my counts as now. Maybe when destroy someone's ability to trust, their need to feel safe matters more than need to explain. I called my lawyer David Chen, who I hired after Googling divorce attorney near me at 3 a.m. last month. He's young, expensive, and has this way of delivering bad news like he's discussing the weather. The restraining order is pretty standard in adultery cases, he said. Especially when there's evidence of unwanted contact. Sarah's attorney is painting as unstable. Unstable. I made one mistake. Michael called her 47 times in 3 weeks. Be shown at her workplace twice. Sent flowers to her book club meeting. From her perspective, we're not taking no for an answer. From her perspective. Like my perspective doesn't matter anymore. Like I forfeited the right to have feelings about losing my family when I decided to sleep with someone else. Maybe I did. What are my chances of getting custody? Long pause. Honestly. Not great. Adultery cases are tough and judges don't like it when fathers destabilize their children's home environment. Plus, Jake's 12. If he expresses a preference to live with his mother full time, he didn't have to finish. I've seen how Jake looks at me now. Like I'm a stranger who happens to share his DNA. That night, I did something I haven't done since I was 12 years old. I called my mom and cried. I don't know how to fix this. I sobbed into the phone, sitting on my Murphy bed in the dark. I don't know how to live without them. Oh honey. She said, and I could hear her heart breaking for me even though I didn't deserve it. Should have thought about that before cheated on wife. Brutal honesty runs in my family apparently. I know that, mom. But they were my whole world. Sarah, the kids are together. I don't know who I am without them. Then need to figure that out. Because the man who had an affair isn't the man I raised, and he's not the man those children deserve as a father. She was right, but hearing it out loud felt like getting punched in the soul. I hung and stared at my phone, scrolling through old photos of our family. Sarah laughing at Emma's school play. Jake's little league championship where he hit his first home run. Last Christmas morning when we were all still happy, still whole, still believing in our forever. Before I destroyed it all for a few weeks of feeling special. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hey stranger. Heard about the divorce. I'm sorry things got so complicated. Won't to tell Melissa. Even seeing her initial made my stomach turn. 3 months ago, getting a text from her would have been the highlight of my day. The secret thrill of someone wanting to talk to me, choosing me, thinking about me. Now it just felt like staring at the wreckage of my. I typed and deleted a dozen responses. Told her it was her fault for contacting Sarah. Told her I never wanted to see her again or I missed her. Told her I hated her. Finally I just wrote, leave me alone. I know, I'm too. We could help each other through this. Help each other through this. Like we were both victims of some unavoidable tragedy instead of the architects of our own destruction. Don't get it, I typed back. I lost everything. My wife, my kids, my house, my friends. Lost nothing. That's not fair. I lost. I stared at that message for 10 minutes. 3 words that somehow managed to be both heartbreaking and infuriating. She lost me. Like I was something worth keeping instead of a married father who away his family for afternoon adventures in parking lots. I blocked her number and deleted the thread. Some bridges need to stay burned. Saturday was my first official visitation day under the new custody arrangement. I picked the kids at 10 a.m. sharp from Sarah's sister's house because Sarah couldn't bear to see me, even for the 30 seconds it takes to transfer children. Emma ran to me like nothing had changed, wrapping her little arms around my legs and chattering about her new teacher and the tooth she lost, and whether we could get ice cream for breakfast. Jake walked to the car like he was heading to his own. Where do you want to go, buddy? I asked, trying to sound like the dad I used to be instead of the stranger I'd become. Doesn't matter. He mumbled, staring out the window. We went to Chuck E. Cheese because Emma loves the games and I was desperate to see my children smile. For 2 hours, I watched my daughter be 8 years old while my son sat at our table looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dad, come play skee ball with us, Emma called, but when I looked at Jake he just shook his head. I'm good here. So I played skee ball with my daughter while my son sat 10 feet away, building walls I might never be able to tear down. In the bathroom while Emma was washing cheese sauce off her hands, Jake finally spoke. Mom cries every night. 4 words that hit me like a freight train. Jake, she thinks I can't hear her, but I can. She cries in her room after she thinks Emma and I are asleep. Every single night since left. I wanted to explain, to tell him how sorry I was, how much I regretted everything, how desperately I wanted to fix our family. But looking at my son's face, so much older than it should be, I realized he didn't need my explanations. He needed me to be better, to be the father he deserved instead of the one who broke his world. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it, Dad. Sorry doesn't make Mom stop crying. Sorry doesn't make our family normal again. He was right. Sorry is just a word say when I've already lost everything that matters. When I dropped them off at 6 p.m., Emma hugged me tight and made me promise we'd go to the zoo next weekend. Jake got out of the car without saying goodbye. I sat in my car outside what used to be my home, watching the lights come on in the windows. Sarah's silhouette moving through the kitchen, probably making dinner for our children. The family continuing without me, adapting to my absence like water flowing around a stone. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't something we'd work through in counseling or fix with enough apologies and change behavior. This was permanent. I was never coming home. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway because these days, even telemarketers are better company than silence. Michael, it's Jessica, from Sarah's book club, Sarah's best friend since college. The one who always got the chair next to Sarah at every dinner party while I sat in the corner. Jessica, I'm not calling to yell at, though God knows deserve it. I'm calling because Sarah asked me to. My heart stopped. Is she okay? Are the kids? They're fine. Well, as fine as they can be after what did to them. But Sarah wanted me to tell something, and she knew if she called herself, think there was hope. Hope. Such a dangerous word. She wants to know that she's filing for full custody. Jake told her about conversation today, and she thinks we're trying to manipulate the children's emotions. What? I would never. Told him we're sorry. Made it about feelings instead of focusing on his. Sarah thinks we're too selfish to put the kids first even now. Selfish. The word hit like a cause it was true. Even in my apology to my son I'd made about my guilt instead of his pain. Even trying to do better I was still failing at being the father my children needed. Jessica, please tell Sarah no, I won't be carrying messages between two. That's what lawyers are for. But I will tell this, stop trying to fix this. Stop showing places, stop calling. Stop sending flowers and gifts and desperate texts. Made choice when cheated on wife, now live with it. She hung before I could respond. I drove back to my studio apartment, past couples holding hands and families eating dinner together and all the normal I used to take for granted. Inside I opened it and sat in my single chair, staring at the brick wall that's become my view of the world. Tomorrow is Monday. I'll go to work where everyone knows I'm the guy who got served divorce papers in the middle of a meeting. I'll smile and pretend I'm handling it well while inside I'm drowning in the consequences of my choices. Tuesday night is parent-teacher conferences. Sarah will go alone to hear how our kids are adjusting to their new reality. I used to love those conferences, sitting next to my wife while teachers told us how smart and kind our children were. Now I'm not even allowed to know how they're doing in school. This weekend, I'll pick Emma and Jake for another 6 hours of supervised visitation, trying to be a father in a Chuck E. Cheese instead of in our home. I'll watch my daughter pretend everything is normal while my son counts the minutes until he can go back to his mother. And every night, I'll lie in this Murphy bed staring at the ceiling, knowing that across town, Sarah is crying herself to sleep because of what I did. The worst part isn't even the loneliness anymore. It's knowing that I deserve every second of it. I had a seat at the table. I had the best seat in the house, actually, right next to the woman who loved me and across from the children who thought I was their hero. I just couldn't see it until I'd thrown it all away for a few moments of feeling like someone else's first choice. Now I sit alone every night. And there's no one left to blame but the man in the mirror. The man who had everything and traded it for nothing. Not just my marriage, not just my family, everything. The divorce was finalized yesterday at 3:15 p.m. in a courtroom that smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Sarah wore the same blue dress she'd worn to Marcus's wedding, the one that started this whole nightmare. She sat at her lawyer's table with perfect posture, looking straight ahead, never once meeting my eyes. I kept staring at her, willing her to look at me one last time, to show me even a flicker of the woman who used to trace patterns on my chest and talk about growing old together. She never looked. When Judge Morrison read the final decree, granting Sarah everything she'd asked for, I felt something inside me just shut off. Like a light switch flip into darkness, full custody to Sarah, supervised visitation for me every other weekend. The house, the cars, half my retirement account, 18 months of alimony on top of child support that will leave me eating ramen for the foreseeable future. All of it deserved, all of it earned through my own spectacular stupidity. But the worst part wasn't the money or the custody arrangement. It was watching Sarah sign her name to end our marriage with the same careful penmanship she'd used to sign our wedding certificate 15 years ago. Mrs. Sarah Thompson became Mems Sarah Mitchell, with a few strophen, erasing me from her as completely as legally possible. After the hearing, as we walked out of the courthouse, Sarah finally spoke to me. Michael, I turned so fast I nearly tripped over my own feet. For one pathetic second, I thought she might say something that would give me hope. Some in her armor that meant she still cared, even a little. The kids want to change their last names to Mitchell. Jake especially. I wanted to hear it from me instead of from them. My legs almost gave out. Sarah, please. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling as a courtesy. Jake said he doesn't want to carry the name of someone who abandoned his family. Abandoned. Like I'd packed and left voluntarily instead of being kicked out for destroying everything good in my. But he was right. When cheat on wife in a Gildren's world, the reason or gone doesn't matter. The result is the same. Can I talk to him, explain that I never wanted to leave them? No. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Lost the right to explain when chose to sleep with someone else in our bed. They're old enough to make their own decisions about whether they want a relationship with Pine. She walked away then, her heels clicking on the courthouse steps, and I knew I was watching her disappear from my forever. That was 3 days ago. Since then, I've been sitting in my studio apartment, staring at the divorce decree and trying to figure out how I ended here. How I went from being a husband and father to being a cautionary tale about throwing away everything that matters. I keep thinking about that wedding. About sitting at that table, feeling invisible and unimportant, and I convincing I deserved better. That I deserved to be someone's first choice instead of their afterthought. The truth I couldn't see then was so obvious now it's almost laughable. I wasn't invisible because Sarah and her friends were excluding me. I was invisible because I'd made that way. Years of checking out of conversations, of scrolling through my phone instead of engaging, of treating social gatherings like obligations instead of opportunities to connect with the woman I married. Sarah didn't put me in the corner seat because she didn't value me. She put me there because I never shown interest in being anywhere else. I'd spent so many years being physically present but emotionally absent that she'd stopped expecting me to participate. And instead of recognizing that I was the problem, instead of trying to be more present, more engaged, more worthy of the seat next to her, I decided to find someone who would appreciate me exactly as I was. Someone who didn't know me well enough to see through my charm to the selfishness underneath. I've been unemployed for 2 weeks. The whispers at work got too loud, the judgment too obvious. When I walked into the break room, conversation stopped. When I passed by cubicles, people suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. My boss, Steve, finally called me into his office last Monday. Michael, I think it would be best if took some time to get personal sorted out. Are firing me. I'm giving the opportunity to resign with dignity and a decent reference. The alternative is termination for creating a hostile work environment. Hostile work environment, because my personal failures made my coworkers uncomfortable. Steve, I never brought my problems to work. I've maintained my professionalism. Had divorce papers served in our conference room. Half the team knows intimate details about affair because I've been taking personal calls at desk. Yesterday, cried during the Johnson presentation. That's not professional, Michael. That's a man who needs to get his together. He was right. I'd been bleeding all over everyone around me, making my collapse their problem to navigate. I cleared out my desk that afternoon. 15 years with the same company, and my goodbye was a cardboard box carried to my car while former friends pretended not to watch from their office windows. The unemployment checks won't even cover my new reality. child support alimony, the studio apartment that costs twice what I can afford. I've been applying for jobs but word travels fast in our industry. Everyone knows about the divorce, the affair, the spectacular public meltdown. No one wants to hire the guy who away his family for a photographer's assistant. Last weekend was supposed to be my visitation with the kids. I showed at Sarah's sister house at 10 a.m. sharp, but only Emma was waiting. "Where's Jake?" I asked. "He's at soccer practice," my sister-in-law said, not quite meeting my eyes. "He asked if he could skip this weekend, said he wasn't feeling well." Emma looked confused. "But Jake's not sick. He went to soccer practice. I saw him put his cleats on." My 8-year-old daughter accidentally revealed what everyone else was trying to hide. Jake hadn't asked to skip because he was sick. He'd asked because he didn't want to see me. I spent 6 hours at the Children's Museum with Emma, watching her explore exhibits and answer questions about butterflies and dinosaurs. She was perfect, chattering away like nothing had changed, holding my hand and calling me daddy like I still deserved the title. But every few minutes, she'd ask when Jake was coming to join us. "He's still not feeling good, sweetheart. Maybe next time, maybe." We both knew I was lying. When I dropped her off, she hugged me tight and whispered, "I love daddy. Even if Jake's mad at." I cried in my car for 20 minutes after that. 2 days ago I drove past our old house. I don't know why. Masochism, maybe some sick need to with what I'd lost. There was a "Sell D" sign on the front lawn. I sat there staring at it, remembering every room in that house. The kitchen where Sarah hummed while making coffee. The living room where we'd built pillow forts with the kids on rainy Sundays. The backyard where Jake hit his first baseball and Emma took her first steps. Our bedroom where I'd betrayed everything sacred about our marriage. A moving truck was parked in the driveway. Men in uniforms were carrying boxes labeled KCN, and Emma's Rom, and Bioks in Sarah's careful handwriting. They were leaving, starting over somewhere I'd never find them, somewhere my presence couldn't contaminate their new beginning. As I watched strangers pack that I'd destroyed, Sarah came out of the house carrying a box marked PH Haas. She saw my car immediately and froze. For 30 seconds we stared at each other across the wreckage of everything we'd built together. I wanted to get out, to beg her one more time to give me another chance, to tell her I'd spend the rest of my making for what I'd done. But I'd already tried that multiple times, and all it had accomplished was making her feel unsafe in her own home. So I just sat there, watching the woman I'd loved for 15 years look at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into her nightmare. She went back inside without a word. I drove away and haven't been back since. Yesterday, my lawyer called with the final paperwork. Everything was official now. The marriage was over, the assets divided, the custody arrangement set in stone. "There is one more thing," David said. Sarah's attorney sent over a letter. She's requesting that not contact the children directly for the next 6 months. She wants them to have time to adjust to their new living situation without pressure. What about my visitation rights? Still have them. But Jake has expressed that he doesn't want to see right now, and Sarah thinks forcing the issue would be harmful to both children. So I just don't see my kids for 6 months. Michael, I have to ask, have considered that might be what's best for them right now. What's best for them? Not what I wanted or needed or felt I deserved. What was actually best for my children? The answer was obvious, even if it destroyed me to admit it. Jake needed time to process his anger without having to face the man who'd caused it. Emma needed stability and routine without the confusion of daddy visits that upset her brother. They both needed to heal in a home where their mother wasn't constantly worried about my next attempt at reconciliation. They needed me to finally put their well-being above my own desperate need to feel forgiven. "Tell Sarah I agree to the no contact period," I said. "And tell her I'm sorry. Not for what I lost but for what I put them through." That was yesterday. Today, I'm writing this final update because I need someone to know how this story really ends. Not with redemption or second chances or the cheater learning his lesson and winning back his family. It ends with me sitting alone in a studio apartment, eating cereal for dinner, surrounded by the silence I wanted when I complained about feeling overlooked at dinner parties. It ends with my children choosing new last names to distance themselves from the father who abandoned them for a few hours of feeling special. It ends with the woman I loved moving to a new city with our kids, building a that doesn't include any trace of me. It ends with me unemployed, broke, and completely alone because every person who ever cared about me has realized they're better off without me in their lives. I wanted a better seat at the table. I wanted to feel chosen, important, prioritized. What I got was a table for one in a restaurant where no one knows my name and no one cares if I show. 3 months ago I had everything. A wife who loved me despite my flaws. Children who thought I was their hero. A home filled with laughter and inside jokes and 15 years of shared memories. Friends who included me in their plans, parents who were proud of their son. A job I was good at, respect from colleagues, a future that looked bright and full of possibility. I had the best seat in the house, right in the middle of a so good I couldn't even see how lucky I was. And I had all away because I thought I deserved better than what I had instead of trying to become better than who I was. The affair lasted 6 weeks. The guilt will last forever. If we're reading this and recognizing, if we're feeling unappreciated or invisible or tempted to find validation outside marriage, let me save the trouble. That seat think want, the one that looks so appealing when someone else is offering it to. It's empty for a reason. It's empty because it's built on lies and selfishness and the destruction of everything real in. It's empty because anyone willing to help betray family isn't someone who actually values. They just value the excitement of being chosen over someone else. It's empty because once sit down, once cross that line, you'll discover that the seat comes with a price tag never imagined have to pay. Integrity, family, children's respect, friends, job, future, ability to look at in the mirror without feeling sick. Everything thought mattered. Everything actually loved. Everything that made who were before decided deserved more than were willing to work for. The seat I chose was always empty for a reason. I'd been smart enough to realize it before I sat down.